Welcome back, you guys. This is another episode in the Indie Beauty Awards, but this episode isn't necessarily a category that a palette wants to find itself in, because today I'm going to show you the palettes in my collection that I voted the most forgettable. We're going to talk about why. Maybe it was long shipping times or whatever. For one reason or another, these are palettes in my collection that I bought, reviewed, and forgot that I even had. And I'm excited. And not only am I going to show you, I'm also going to rank them from best to worst or worst to best. But let's get into it. If this is your first time here, my name is Heather. I love all things makeup, especially colorful makeup and indie brands. And if you guys love those things too, I really hope you will subscribe. And don't forget to click the little bell so you can be notified of all my future uploads. And as I mentioned, I love reviewing indie brands. I love eyeshadow palettes. That is where my heart is at. I get so excited and so lost in creating looks. It's one of my favorite things to do in the whole world. But sometimes you get duds, or sometimes it could be a great palette, but for one reason or another, it just doesn't speak to you. So I have a stack of palettes here. I have no idea how many I have. I'll pop it up on the screen. I'll have to count them in a minute, but for one reason or another, these just, they didn't stick in my mind. Like when I do my makeup off camera, the things that I consider favorites are things that I see myself wanting to reach for time and time again. They always stick out in the forefront of my mind. And unfortunately, these are on the opposite side of the scale. So let me go ahead and count these palettes and we'll get into the ranking. I really love rankings as well. They're some of my favorite videos to do, and I try to find new ways to rank them. Like I've started this voted most series and it's been really fun. I still have a ton of like ideas for this series. So if you like that, then please subscribe. Let me count these palettes. Okay, so there are 17 palettes here, and I would say 16 out of the 17 are great quality. The number 17 is just a bad palette all around, and it's the Friday the 13th palette from GLAMLITE. GLAMLITE has one of my favorite formulas. I actually have another palette in here from them, but I liked this color story, but I hate the formula. I don't know what went wrong. I mean, it's not terrible or anything, but the shimmers are very dull. There's no shine to them. They're like really dry, and like you could barely even see that gold shimmer that I put down. It's just, all in all, it's not a good palette. I don't even know if you could get it anymore, but if you can, do not recommend it at all. There's like so many other things, especially from GLAMLITE, that you could get that you would really love. Coming in at number 16 is the GOURMANDISES. I don't know how to say the name of it, but this is from Gourmand Girls. I do have a code with them. It is AOML. This one, I'm almost positive I picked up on my own. I'm pretty sure I did. And while I love the Gourmand Girls formula, and I did really enjoy the looks that I created out of this palette, it just doesn't feel as like flowy, like cohesive, maybe as I want it to be. And I am someone that likes a scattered palette, like the Skull palette, the Calavera palette that they did. I don't think it got nearly enough hype. That palette is so beautiful and I love it. But for some reason, this one just missed the mark. The color story is just not my favorite. And if you are looking for a palette from Gourmand Girls, I highly recommend the Frozen Kiss, any of their little Halloween palettes like Spooks, Nightshade, Haunted. Those are great. One of my favorites is Peach Perfect, or Perfect Peach. I always say it backwards, but I love those. But just for me personally, this one wasn't it. Okay, you guys know how much I love cosmic brushes, but this one missed the mark. There's actually 2 Cosmic Brushes palettes in this ranking. I'm just sick of the rainbow palettes. Like, we need something else. I mean, she did release this a minute ago. Maybe was it last year or the year before? And while this palette is really beautiful, I highly recommend any palette you would want from them that you like the color story, because they have a fantastic formula. But this is one that I only pull out for rankings. I have not used this one time since the moment I first, I don't even think I reviewed that. I don't think I had my channel yet. So I used it maybe once or twice and I never picked it up again. Then coming in at number 14 is a palette from one of my favorite brands, and it's Unearthly Cosmetics. Here we have the Charmer palette. So this released this year in their Valentine's Day mystery box, and unfortunately when that box came out, I was broke, so I couldn't pick it up, and it sold out so fast. And I love a lot of the stuff that was in that box, but I had to pick up the pre-order, and by the time I got it, it was like 5 or 6 weeks later, and my excitement for it had kind of died down a little bit. And to be honest, I still have not used this palette for like a standalone palette look. It's beautiful, and I love the shimmers. I've dipped into them for looks and stuff, but I've not used this palette one time on its own. And even though I love Unearthly Cosmetics, like, look at these shimmers. I mean, you can't even get this, so I probably shouldn't even be showing you. I love their palettes, their formulas so much. This one missed the mark for me. But I honestly think it was where I had to wait, which is my own fault, but it just, you know, my excitement went away. So coming in at number 13 is another Cosmic Brushes palette. We have the GOTHIC palette. This is another one of those palettes I reviewed and I never picked it back up. And it's simply because the color story. This palette is gorgeous, and I know a bunch of you guys love purple. So I think for a lot of people this would be a favorite. But for me, it is not. And it's like, I hit it and quit it. I don't even know how else to explain it. I have not used it one time since I reviewed it. Same goes for this one, the Spring Dragon from ODENS and the JUDY. Now this is a great palette for like inner corner highlight for me, but you see the eye look I have on. It's very bold and dramatic. That is what I go for. So in all fairness, this palette was not created for someone like me, and the reason I bought it is because I love ODENS and I do have the original like collaboration palettes with them, so I wanted it. And I do love pastels. This is a great palette for me to have as a companion to other palettes. That way I can really get that inner corner like highlight shade or blend out shade, and I do like it for that, but it's just one I don't think about. I actually need to keep it on my desk so I can use it that way, but I forgot about it. Coming in at number 12 is the Unearthly Cosmetics Mellow Grove. This palette is really beautiful. It has like a really dusty, rosy, kind of muted color story. Very garden-esque, and it's really beautiful. But the formula isn't my favorite in this palette. I don't think it's bad, but it's dustier than what I'm used to from them. I'm really excited to see their Dexter collab. I want to be all over that. I've not tried too much from Lethal. I have 4 palettes, I believe. And while this one is not bad quality, it's just not a color story that speaks to me. It's not as vampy or dramatic as I would like it to be. Then coming in at number 11, we have the ODENS Earthwood palette. The artwork on this is so beautiful, but this was a collab with the Fancy Face, and I really love this one. This is really, really beautiful. I like this shade down here, Beauty, but it's just not my favorite color story, and that's the only reason I think that I don't really think about it. The only time I think about it is when I think about this shade, which is freaking gorgeous. But it just, you know, everything can't be for you. So if you love these palettes, please don't take this personally. It's just a fun way to talk about palettes and stuff like that. It doesn't mean they're bad quality or anything. It's just, you know, we all have different interests in things. So it's not like personal. Coming in at number 9, this is a palette that I really enjoyed playing with, but I just don't think about it at all anymore, and it is from Nomad. It's the Ireland Wild Atlantic Way. This is a really pretty palette and a really pretty color story, but it's just a bit too monochromatic for me. Some of these greens, while they look different in the pan and in swatching on the eye, especially with the other colors, they do look very similar. I wish they would have switched out like one of these golds for a completely different shade instead of like using different tones of gold. But with all that being said, the palette is still really beautiful and I did love playing with it. I do have a code, at least for now, from Nomad. I don't know. I was supposed to get like 10 sales by the end of the year, and I don't know if I'm gonna make that goal. I really don't even know how many I have, but you can try it. It should be AOML if I do have one. So I think this is number 8. It is the Siren Sunset from Lunar Beauty. I just freaking love the packaging on this, and I love that they finished out the picture with the back and like her diving into the water. I think that's so beautiful. But to be honest, I was so bummed out when I saw all of these neutral shades after he reviewed it. I mean, revealed it. I could understand why some of them are in there, but not all of them. There should have been like a lighter purple, a lighter blue, and you know, these 4 right here even look good together. That makes sense. But these 2 here in those 3 do not make any sense to me, and I think that might be, I have a hair falling in my face. There we go. And maybe that's just a personal preference kind of thing, but this missed the mark and I was kind of disappointed in it, but it's still a beautiful palette and I do love the Lunar Beauty formula. So coming in at number 7 is a palette from GLAMINATRIX. We have the Pretty and Pastels. So this palette is really, really beautiful, and I really love that they did a light, medium, and dark row of mattes, and then a light and a medium row of shimmers. I really, really love that. But I was kind of disappointed when I did my looks with this, but I'm starting to think that it was a primer that I was using at the time, and it was kind of like dulling the shimmers, because that's what my issue was. I love the mattes, but the shimmers were kind of dull. But when I swatched them, they're really, really beautiful, and I'm going to find out like what it was, because I did order some palettes that I didn't have from GLAMINATRIX that I really wanted during Black Friday, and I ordered some more blushes and stuff. I'm super excited to get them, but because of that, I have not found the urge to reach for this palette, but now I kind of want to, because I want to see if I'm right. I really do think it might have been the glitter primer I was using at the time. So coming in at number 6 is the Full Fantasy palette by Lunar Beauty and Laura Lee Los Angeles. I will say, for a neutral palette, I love this. This is my kind of neutral palette. One of my favorite palettes that he has done. Definitely my favorite that she has done. My favorite of his is the Moonshroom. I think that's what it's called. It's gorgeous, but I just love how grungy and swampy this is. And every time I pull it out, I'm like, because it's so beautiful. But for some reason, in the sea of palettes that I own, when I want to create a look, I never pick this one up. And honestly, I don't even know why, because this palette is really, really beautiful. And I think they did a good job on it. So now we are at my top 5. I like all of these palettes. They are all really, really good quality. And honestly, I don't even know why I don't reach for them, because I really had so much fun creating looks with them. And coming in at number 5 is the Fresh Prince from GLAMLITE. It's like another kind of rainbow palette. It's not, but it looks too much like a rainbow. And I think I'm like so sick of rainbow palettes that it deters me from using this palette. But this has their fantastic formula. And it actually has a light shade for me to be able to use like as an inner corner shade, but only if I want it to be pink. But this palette is still really beautiful. It was really fun. Had a blast creating looks with it. It's just one of those palettes that got lost. You know, I've not touched this or even opened it, I don't think, since I filmed my video with it. Same with this one because it's GLAMLITE too, and it's the Betty Boop. This palette swatched out is really, really beautiful, and I love the formula. This is one of their best palettes. Highly recommend. The thing about this one is this red background washes this palette out and it makes it look boring, even though it's not. And even though I technically know that, when I open it, I'm just like I need to see it swatched out every time to actually want to use it. I have stuff in my collection that when I open it, I get excited and I can't wait to use it. And because of the packaging on this, I think it makes it to where I just don't want to use it. But I will say, if you like this color story, it is a gorgeous palette with a gorgeous formula. GLAMLITE's good formula is one of my favorites, so I do recommend. You just gotta kind of watch reviews and stuff and try to keep, you know, pay attention and find out like what's the good formulas and what's not. I have not had a bad formula from them this year besides the Kiss palette, but I have not bought all of the palettes this year either. I've been kind of taking a break because they do release a lot, and I try to keep up with indie brands, and there's other brands that I just like to follow more closely, but I do like GLAMLITE a lot. They're up there, like definitely in my top 10. Coming in at number 3 is another ODENS eye palette. It's the Mighty Monster. So this is with Annette, and I think it's a beautiful palette. I really, really like the color story, but I like her first one more. The thing that makes me remember this palette are these two shades right here, but outside of that, I don't think about it. You know, like the original Christmas Eve and Christmas palettes, those palettes are always in my mind. I think about them all the time when I think about doing my makeup, or even videos where I talk about palettes. Those are ones I always think to pull out because they're fantastic. The color stories are really fun. You can experiment with different combos. You can create easy looks if that's what you're into. And it's just, I don't know, it's just not my color story. This one I had to force myself to use, but it's such a beautiful color story and it's such a beautiful palette, so I don't know why. This is such a me color story as well. I think I know why though, and this is coming in at number 2, and it's the SOLMANE 2 from ODENS eye. I think the reason why I don't love this one more than I do is it's not deep enough. The only way you can get a like dramatic eye look out of it is if you use LUNAR Eclipse. Cause I mean, contrast comes like when you use, that would be a really pretty combo, that in the inner corner and then the purple out here with the shade on the lid. I mean, it is an inspiring palette, obviously, because I just got excited by looking at it. And you can get contrast by putting a like light shade in the inner corner and then having a deeper shade in the outer corner. But I want mega contrast. I want all of the contrast. I want it to be so dramatic, and you know, that's not what this palette is giving. It's not what it was made for, but it's still a gorgeous palette with a gorgeous formula, and I love ODENS eye. But now I kind of want to do that look with the purple and the yellow. I think that would be really pretty. Maybe even this one to blend out the purple, or you could do the cool tone. That would be pretty too. Maybe I need to create a winter look with that. So my favorite palette out of my most forgettable palettes is the COSTAL palette from Simply Posh. I forget about this palette, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I pulled it out and was looking at it, the duos in this palette is stunning. And I really like this brand. I know they're supposed to be releasing something really soon. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited to see it because I think this palette is really, really gorgeous and they did a great job. It's just, it's like the perfect beachy palette, but more. It's not boring like most beachy palettes are, but I don't know. I just forget about it. And again, I think it's because it doesn't have enough depth for me. But I will say it's stunning, and I'm excited to pull this out this spring. That is it, guys. Those are all the palettes I wanted to talk about. Now, I want to hear from you. What are palettes that you feel like you wasted your money on? Palettes that you picked up and you just forgot about for one reason or another? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm excited to come out with some different episodes and find ways to talk about more palettes. I think that's really fun, and I always really enjoy reading your guys' comments and stuff, hearing your thoughts on all of this. And while I don't feel inspired by most of these or inspired to use them, most of them I'm still glad that I picked up. Out of all of these, the only one I wish I wouldn't have bought is this one from GLAMLITE, because it's just a terrible quality. It's not my favorite, but yeah, I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and until next time, bye!